I never thought that one day I'll be talking about a battery in this channel, but the VB212's advanced features just set a much higher bar for all V-mount batteries, which could change this industry forever. It pretty much embarrassed all the legacy brands we've been using for decades, and it's hard not to talk about how it did this, despite that 2 years ago, SmallRig wasn't even making batteries. But we all know nothing is perfect, so in this episode I'll give you my honest take on the new VB212, what I like, what I don't like, and let you judge if it's good enough to add to your kit. Also, I want to give a huge thanks to B&H for offering you $700 worth of instant gift cards. Make sure to stick around to the end of the episode to find out how you can win. A quick disclaimer, SmallRig sent me this battery for review. They did not pay me for it. Everything I'm sharing here is my own, and they didn't see this video before its release. My promise is to always share with you my unfiltered, honest, and unbiased opinion. So we've got two types of external batteries. First, we have the good old V-mount. They're the big workhorses that power cinema cameras and LED lights, but they're called dumb batteries or bricks for a reason. That's because they run on antiquated power technologies and suffer from a limited set of features due to their outdated power connections. They also take forever to charge on their bulky and expensive chargers. And their smartest feature is a primitive power level indicator that leaves you guessing how much time is really left before it dies. Then we have these small and smart power banks. They use modern power technologies, offer multiple fast charging USB-C ports, and flaunt an advanced LED info display with real-time updates on everything happening with all its ins and outs. But these batteries are much smaller with lower charge capacity and lack any proper mounting options. So here comes the VB212 from SmallRig, a battery that combined the best of both worlds. It has the high power output from the V-mounts and the smart features and modern charging technologies from the compact battery banks. Let's start with the breakdown of the four most common sizes in all V-mounts. The 90 and 150 watt-hour ranges are the most popular and preferred sizes. Apart from their decent capacities, they're safe to take on a plane. Then we have the less popular 50 watt-hour range, also safe for air travel, but too small for most demanding cinema productions. That's why they're relatively more popular in the mirrorless world. And finally, the least popular beefy 200 plus watt-hour range, like our VB212 here. These are the big batteries that do all the heavy lifting for much longer than all the above. But their main problem, other than the big size and heavy weight, is being internationally prohibited by law to carry on planes. And that's the first major drawback you need to keep in mind when considering any battery above 160 watt-hour. It's unfortunate that despite being such great and portable power solutions, you can't travel far with them. So why do you need such big batteries anyway? You might think it's mainly to power cinema cameras and their accessories as a single power solution, but there's a lot more to it, like powering LED lights when shooting outdoors, for example, or even to charge smaller batteries and other devices or laptops during breaks, which makes this big battery such a super versatile compact power solution if wall power isn't handy. But in the case of cameras, for example, this comes at the expense of portability, since it's a pretty beefy battery that weighs almost 3 pounds. So you'll have to think twice before you consider mounting it on your camera without any proper support. Let me give you some practical examples where this battery would shine. The most popular use might be with the power-guzzling cinema cameras and their accessories. These big batteries help get them beyond the 1 hour mark. In fact, I managed to get a bit over 3 hours on my Red V Raptor while continuously rolling on 8K RAW. As for mirrorless cameras, this can last a whole day of shooting, and I mean that literally. It gave me an estimate of 24 hours on my FX3 when rolling continuously at 4K, and over 15 hours on my GH7 rolling on 6K internal RAW. SmallRig has its own metrics on some other cameras on their website, which could be good reference. I personally take official estimates with a grain of salt, but these numbers still seem realistic. But still, they are way beyond what you would usually need from any shoot. So I'd say this battery just gives you the confidence to not worry about leaving your camera turned on or rolling all day long, which is useful for long uninterrupted event coverage or interview setups, for example. You can either mount the battery on the tripod with a V-lock clamp, or keep things a lot more compact and use this SmallRig V-mount rig for a more compact setup. I'll leave links for both in the description below. This rigging solution is pretty smart and useful for all other scenarios when the camera is stationary, but I would not recommend it for a run-and-gun situation. It's just impractical to carry such heavy weight that's heavier than the camera itself when the main advantage of these cameras is their compact size. So the smaller VB99 is a better choice for such handheld setups. You can also use the VB212 for remote shooting. It can power your camera if it's rigged in hard-to-reach places. This way you won't need to worry about swapping batteries. The second perfect use for the VB212 is for powering lights. I actually used it in my recent GH7 shoot to power the SmallRig RC60B for a couple of hours since the location barely had any power outlets, and I didn't want to daisy chain stingers all over the place. It's a pretty common situation you'll find yourself in when shooting in remote locations. To give you some metrics, the battery can power at full brightness the 78 watts SmallRig RC60B for 150 minutes. That's in addition to the light's internal battery that lasts up to 40 minutes. Also, it can power the 170 watts Nanlite 150B for 2 hours. And if you use 2 batteries, you can power the 350 watts Nanlite 300B Mark II for 80 minutes. When it comes to charging other batteries and devices, I direct you to watch Caleb's episode. He did a great job demonstrating what this battery can do in these scenarios. Let's now break down the features and everything I like and don't like about the battery. Starting with body and design, I have mixed feelings about how the battery design looks more sleek and modern when we compare it to the typical rugged look we're used to from V-Lock batteries in general. Batteries usually take a beating on set, and I'm not sure if this one would look as good after a year of rough handling. I guess we'll have to wait and see. And it seems that this glossy front cover is becoming a popular design motif in all these higher-end batteries. We saw it in this Anker Prime power bank, and even in other V-mount competitors that we'll be talking about in a bit. It's a super stylish scratch-resistant acrylic cover and a very effective fingerprints magnet, but nobody cares about that on set anyway. Don't get me wrong, despite the fancy look, it still feels pretty sturdy and well built. The rounded corners makes it feel more durable against falls than the VB99 that has sharp corners, which doesn't look like it was designed for rough handling. But the battery is pretty bulky. For size reference, you can perfectly fit a FX3 inside it, and by all means, it's far from being mini or pocket size as they claim. Which reminds us of another pocket product we all know. Also, at almost 3 pounds, it's heavier than average. I don't have another 212 watt-hour battery to compare it to, but next to the Core Nano 150, a true pocket-sized battery, the VB212 capacity versus weight is heavier, meaning if we scale up the Nano to the same 212 capacity and do the math, it'll be more than 20% lighter than the 212. I like how it has this rubberized silicone on the sides that makes it easier to grip, and another at the bottom to keep it steady on surfaces, compared to other batteries that are mostly plastic and can easily slide, including their own VB99. The battery has one button on the side to wake it up and show the charge status, and if you double press it, it toggles between watts and volts. I just wish the button had a different color to stand out a bit from all this black. It's kinda hard to spot in most situations, but I guess muscle memory will fix that. One thing I love about the design is the mounting options. Not only it has a V-Lock mount in the back, but also both a standard 3/8 and a 1/4 screw threads. It's such a simple and brilliant feature that I'm surprised I didn't see it in any of the V-mounts I've used other than the most recent Nano X that only has 1/4 thread. Also, all connections are protected by silicone covers. That's pretty standard anyway. But I like how the top cover has a groove to keep it in place when open. We still have a couple of things that I didn't like again. First, all the connections labels are hard to read unless you hold the battery at a certain angle against the light. And even if you manage to read them, the DC barrel connections are the only ones that have their power outputs labeled. All others only have their connection type labels, which is not very helpful. What's more helpful is labeling them with the maximum power outputs and ideally be printed on each connection instead of only being engraved. I've seen it done in many other batteries and power adapters, so it shouldn't be that hard to implement here. But it's good at least we have all this useful information printed in the back. I just wish it wasn't printed in this microscopic font that's impossible to read without a magnifying glass. One last issue I have with the D-taps, I like how we have one on each side, but I didn't like how they both have identical orientations. Meaning, if I connect any standard right-angle D-tap cable, it'll be pointing downwards. So I just wish they had them facing different directions, just to give us more freedom in rigging, especially that it's hard to find D-taps facing the other direction. The last two things I wish SmallRig did in the design. First, I wish the batteries were stackable. You can see how the Core Nano has these small notches that makes them stack nicely on top of each other. But the VB, on the other hand, has that slippery cover that makes it impossible to safely stack them. Second, I wish we had a small built-in flashlight like the one in the new Swit 200S. It's super practical to have on dark sets or night shoots. I've seen cheaper batteries on Amazon that have an even nicer soft LED light. So I wouldn't mind making better use of this acrylic front cover and add a light to it. Okay, let's now talk about the important stuff. Inputs and outputs. That's where this battery really shines. We have 8 ports in total, split into 5 connection types, 3 of which are bidirectional, so they can power and charge the battery as well. That's way more than the usual, even in more established and expensive big batteries. Let's break them down real quick to see what makes this battery so special. On the top side, you'll find the stars of the show, the 2 USB-Cs with the latest power delivery 3.1 technology. That's a big deal because the previous PD 3.0 maxed out at 100 watts, but the new 3.1 can max out at 240 watts, and the VB is taking advantage of 140 of them. That's the highest wattage I've ever seen from a USB-C in any portable battery. That's the same power you get from the latest MacBook Pro 16-inch wall adapter. The other great thing about it is you can output 140 watts from both USB-Cs simultaneously. And it's bidirectional, so you can power the battery and charge devices at 140 watts. And Caleb claimed it can fully charge in just 2 hours. That's a pretty bold claim, especially that my 82 watt-hour hypercore that's 2.5 times smaller usually takes more than 2 hours to fully charge on the V-mount charger. And even the more modern Core Neo 150 takes 7 hours. So I tested charging it with this new 140 watts power adapter and with Apple's MacBook Pro adapter. First, I noticed the estimate reading to fully charge was too good to be true. Then I noticed it was charging almost 1% every minute to reach a full charge in a record-breaking hour and 50 minutes. That's pretty impressive. I've never seen any V-Log battery of that capacity to charge that fast. So I wanted to compare that to charging it on a V-mount charger. And I wasn't surprised that 2 hours on the charger gave me only 16% charge. But that's not the battery's fault. It's the problem with the antiquated V-mount charger technology itself. And that's the moment I realized we finally entered a new era in V-mount charging speeds, and it's time for these chargers to finally retire. And I couldn't help but think about all these times we've been buying and dragging these expensive and bulky chargers on shoots, when we could have just carried a couple of these cheaper and smaller chargers instead. Or just use your max power adapters and get back up and running in less than 2 hours. So the USB-C is by far the most impressive feature in this battery, but it suffers from a major flaw. It lacks any locking solution that would properly secure it in place. You can see how it's too wiggly, which makes it pretty unreliable and prone to damage in any run-and-gun shoot or uncontrolled setting. And I'm very surprised that SmallRig, being a world leader in rigging solutions, couldn't come up with a way to fix that. Moving on to the other connections real quick, we have one USB-A, an almost obsolete technology that was thankfully replaced by the USB-C for obvious reasons. But it's good to have anyway for all your outdated gadgets. We have two DC barrel connections, one delivering 8 volts and the other 12 volts. Also super old tech, but good to have in both flavors. Also 2 D-taps, one on each side. The left one delivers 10 amps and can also charge the battery, but again, with a super fast USB-C, you won't need this to charge it. The other D-tap delivers 6 amps. And finally, the V-mount BP electrodes at the bottom. That's the third way you can charge the battery, but we already established it would be a huge waste of time. Great to power your gear though, especially high-powered lights. That's because it's offering 19 amps of power. That's more than the 16 or 12 amps you'd find around this capacity range. Let's now talk about the advanced info display, one of the main selling points of this battery. The VB212 is offering the 3 most important things you need on set. First, the charge level in percent. Second, the time remaining in hours and minutes, whether that's the time to fully charge the battery or to power your equipment. And finally, the breakdown of all the power draw values from every single connection, all displayed in your choice of whether volts or watts, additional to their total distribution of power. And of course, everything is displayed in real time and visible in the dark thanks to the LED screen that's always on as long as it's connected and in action. And if you need to turn it off, you can do that with a simple press of a button. And if you press it 10 times, you get the total charge cycles as well. Pretty neat. So everything on the screen is orchestrated by the battery management system, which also runs all these safety features in the background to give you the peace of mind you need to focus on your shoot. It's worth noting that this kind of advanced display is commonly found in these smaller power banks you can buy from Amazon, but it's very rare and relatively new in V-mount batteries. So having that level of detail in this battery really puts all these big legacy brands to shame. I'm not sure why they're still living in last century's technology with these primitive power indicators or this retro LCD screen that lights up in the dark. It just reminds me of these back-illuminated Casio watches from the 80s and 90s. That's 40 years old technology. What is it doing here in the 21st century? I mean, even their most recent releases still lack the level of details today's battery technology can offer. With that said, the only issue I have so far with the VB212 screen is its small size. The smaller Anker power bank has a more readable screen with bigger fonts. So once again, I would advise SmallRig to make better use of all this unused massive real estate area on the front. With all that said, is the VB212 worth the hefty price tag? I compared it to many of the most recent releases from all these famous brands, and they were not even close. They all lack the innovations and smart features we have in the VB212, which makes it hard for them to justify their high price tags. I guess SmallRig saw an opportunity here to swoop in with the latest technologies and utterly destroy them with the highest value for money a product can offer, despite the fact that they've only been in the battery market for barely 2 years. But SmallRig is not the only one taking advantage of this. We have a bunch of next-gen brands that also entered the race with similar competitive set of features and pricing, but they all fall under the air travel safe limit of 160 watt-hour. and I didn't feel any of them really cracked the right balance like SmallRig. Maybe K&F seems to have the best value in the 90s range, and could potentially be a fierce competitor if they go big and compete beyond the 200 watt-hour range. So as of this date, and to my knowledge, I can safely say that the VB212 offers the highest value for money. It is easily the most intelligent and feature-packed big battery above the 200 watt-hour range capacity in the market. I only wish SmallRig makes an air travel friendly 155 watt-hour version of this design. They already have an older one in the market, but it's missing a lot of the cool features that made the 212 so special. Why not even add some of the improvements and ideas I suggested for the VB212? So in the meantime, I'll surely be using this battery in most if not all my local shoots, and I would highly recommend it to everyone. This brings me to our giveaway from B&H. If you're planning to grab one of these VB212s, this is your chance to win up to a $200 gift card. All you need to do is just to use this link to make your battery purchase. The first one to make a purchase will win $200, the second will win $100, and everyone from the 3rd to the 10th buyer will win $50 each. These electronic gift cards will be sent directly to your email within a month after you made the purchase. Huge thanks again to B&H for supporting my channel and for offering you these awesome prizes. I'm very happy to see SmallRig doing the right thing and collaborate with experienced filmmakers like Caleb Pike. His professional input in designing products made for filmmakers is pretty clear in this battery, making it really stand out from previous generations. I really hope more brands adopt this approach. Don't just listen to us, but engage more with us to better understand what we really need, and let's get better products in our hands. Hope you liked this episode, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.